This is your Wednesday daily delivery. I am Michael Rand. If you love drama, Tuesday was a good day for you. I got a lot of drama for you on the basketball court. I got some drama in Badger land, and I've got some drama with pitching. Sticky substance crackdown was a ton of fun. Chris Hine will join me in just a little bit, covers the Timberwolves. He's been on this show many, many times. You know him as the first 5-time guest in daily delivery history. He'll come on, talk about the Timberwolves did not keep their lottery pick. That was the expected result, but they did have a 28% chance of keeping it going into Tuesday night. Instead, it goes to Golden State as the number 7 pick in this year's draft. So no first-round draft pick for the Wolves. That completes the circle of the D'Angelo Russell, Andrew Wiggins trade, with the Wolves shipping out what turned into be the number 7 overall pick in the 2021 draft. But first, what did I miss? Sticky substance crackdown. A little moment of levity. Former Twins pitcher Sergio Romo dropped his pants as part of the process of getting checked for illegal substances. That was kind of fun. Good for Sergio. Just let it go. Be a little upset about getting checked for substances by umpires. But the real drama was saved for the Nationals Phillies game. Max Scherzer checked 3 different times, and the third time he got checked, had a little confrontation with Joe Girardi, the manager of the Phillies. Kind of stared him down, kind of gestured at him. Girardi comes storming out of the dugout, gets ejected, and it's just this. Is this what baseball wanted? I mean, it kind of was fun for a day. But is this really going to be going on for days and days and days? Is this the new normal with pitchers just getting routinely checked? Like I'm all for cracking down on this. Don't get me wrong. I don't think it's okay that pitchers are cheating. I think it's ridiculous that this has gotten to this point. That said, it's also ridiculous to have in-game interruptions with constant checking, and that you can just ask to be checked whenever you want. And again, it can be a little gamesmanship at this point. Girardi did say, there was no gamesmanship as part of it. He said he legitimately thought Max Scherzer was using something suspicious. So here's the quote from Joe Girardi after the game.
But I've never seen him wipe his head like he was doing tonight, ever. Going like this, right? So it was suspicious for me. He did it about 4 or 5 times. It was suspicious. I didn't mean to offend anyone. I just got to do what's right for our club.
Now, the umpires checked him. They said all they found was sweat. Scherzer basically was using the sweat on his head to get a better grip on the ball. He almost hit a batter earlier in the game, and he was having a hard time controlling the baseball. But also, spin rates down for pitchers in the first game of crackdowns. I'm not going to list individual pitchers. You can kind of go do that yourself. Baseball Savant has a lot of that right there in front of you. Now, after the game, Scherzer said, "I would have to be an absolute fool to use something illegal tonight." And he also, when asked about Joe Girardi checking him for foreign substance, said, "These are Manfred rules," referring to Commissioner Rob Manfred. "Go ask him what he wants to do with this. I've said enough. I don't need to say any more about this." This is going to be some serious drama for baseball for the rest of the year. Maybe that's what they want. Maybe that's fun. Maybe it's injecting some life into the game. I don't know. It's going to get a little contentious, though. And, I don't think players are too happy with Commissioner Rob Manfred. I wouldn't be. A mid-season rule change like this, I get it. You want to crack down, but why have you let this go on for so long and then all of a sudden you decide to crack down on it in the middle of a season? It doesn't make much sense to me. You're only growing animosity in the game between pitchers and hitters, between pitchers and managers, and specifically between everybody and Rob Manfred, who, even before this all started, was not the most popular guy, not the most popular commissioner in the game, slowly taking over probably as the worst commissioner in all of professional sports. Maybe not even that slowly, maybe taking over pretty fast. So, yeah, if we're going to have an ejection and a confrontation on a routine basis over these checks, I guess I'm intrigued by it, but I don't think it's going to be good for the long-term health of baseball.
Enjoy your money your way when you switch to Royal Credit Union. You can pay friends and family for free, deposit checks on the go, and even get alerts about your account sent in real time. Stop in and open your account today or get started at rcu.org/yourway. Insured by NCUA.
Happy to be joined on Daily Delivery today by several-time guest Chris Hine. Had to have you on one more time before a little break here because the draft lottery drawing was Tuesday night. Timberwolves do not keep their pick. That was the expected outcome, Chris, but still maybe a little bit disappointing for Wolves fans who are hoping the 27.6% chance of keeping that top 3 pick would hang in there for them this year.
Yeah, coming into the night, you thought that they might defy the odds a little bit, but actually dropping to the 7th pick was their highest odds of any scenario happening. I think it was about 29% or so, give or take, that they would end up in the 7th spot, and that's what played out. So now we know that getting rid of Andrew Wiggins brought back D'Angelo Russell, but it also cost them a 2nd-round pick, and it cost them the 7th overall pick in this year's draft. That is the final price to put a bow on the Andrew Wiggins trade.
As you think about that, was it, we're going to have to see more of Russell and Towns, and we certainly knew that Wiggins and Towns wasn't working, but with it conveying at number 7, you have no idea what's going to happen at the time. Is that a fair trade to Golden State? Get more value maybe than you think the Wolves did in that trade?
I think it's still tough to say ultimately. I think you would much rather be on the war. I don't know if much rather be, but the Warriors got, in their view, somebody that they needed or kind of filled a need, and they got a couple of draft picks on top of it. So I think Russell, to make that trade work for the Wolves, we're going to have to see him elevate this team, or at least help elevate this team to a playoff contending team. Otherwise, I think you could say that Golden State probably quote unquote won the trade, at least in the foreseeable future here. That being said, who knows what the future is going to hold? Who knows who they're going to pick with the 7th pick here? You listen to analysts talk about this draft, and beyond the top 4, maybe top 5, there seems to be a consensus drop off. Now, I don't like listening to the consensus on when it comes to draft thinking. I think it's a fool's errand every year, especially last year when people were saying that there was maybe really no top tier talent available in the draft, and I think people would argue that's not the case.
Right.
So I tend to take those evaluations with a grain of salt, but I will say that at least the Wolves avoided the worst case scenario of giving up the number 4 pick, which would have put Golden State in that tier of 4 or 5 and given them maybe a lot more ammunition as it relates to either getting a pick or potentially trading it. Because I think the Wolves, if they had gotten a top 3 pick, maybe they would have been open for business in terms of trading it.
Now, I feel like a lot of what the Wolves did at the end of the year was, obviously geared toward, they wanted to be competitive. They wanted to see what they had with these guys. They wanted to start a winning culture. Part of me also wondered, though, if there was this fear that if they were in kind of that bottom 3 of the league, that the pick would convey 60% chance it would convey as the number 4 or the number 5 pick or right around there. And that the optics of that versus, how they finish now and getting the 7 pick and giving that up, it's a pretty big difference in this draft. Do you think the optics fueled any of that, or is that just a byproduct of them playing better in the second half of the season?
We'll never really know the truth to that. You'll never hear anybody come out and say that,
No,
right?
Of course not. Yeah.
My sense is that their reasoning, they're not lying when they say, and you could just look at D'Lo and Cat and the fact that they had only played 5 or 6, however many games it was. And it's now that both guys are healthy with about a month, it was about a month and a half left in the season. You do need to see what this looks like. You did need to see whether that worked, whether you could win some games with these guys, just what you have. What else do you need around them? There's a lot of evaluation that had to take place in that last 6 weeks, especially with a new coach and trying to see what Chris Finch could add to the mix here. So I do buy that reasoning, and they did have some success down the stretch. I think it was 7-5 over the last 12.
Right.
That was what really those last few weeks really dropped them down to the 6th spot. And so I do buy the reasoning, but It's still, I'm sure it doesn't take the sting out of what happened tonight anymore. I put on Twitter, I put the Price is Right horns out there, the sad trombones. So, yes, exactly.
Yeah, it is. It's, people, I think what's interesting is that if the Wolves had played the way they probably thought they would play this year, which was, I don't think they had any illusions of being like a top 4 team in the West this quick, but I think they thought more highly of themselves, and other people thought more highly of themselves, that maybe this could be a 500 team that maybe could compete for at least a play-in. Then them playing so poorly actually put them in a position where this even became a question of would they maybe keep this pick, and could it convey in the top 3? So it kind of got interesting where, if they played better, they wouldn't have even been in this conversation. And then they got the fans' hopes up and maybe their own hopes up a little bit. But now, not having the pick, they know they get their pick in 2022. They'd hope it's, not a lottery pick, because that would mean they had a good season. But in the short term, not a ton of flexibility to make a lot of additions this offseason, because they don't have a lot of cap room. If they're going to do anything at this point now with no draft pick, it's probably going to be trades, right?
Yeah, that would seem to be the thing. When you have such little room under the luxury tax, and now they're not going to have to add a top 3 pick salary. So there is that. So Roses has talked about some of the financial flexibility that allows, but it's not a lot of financial flexibility. It's a little bit. But yeah, any major moves, you just look at the cap sheet and you say, well, they're almost at the tax. So any moves are going to have to be trades. So, and we've heard Roses say that the power forward position is priority headed into this offseason. So we'll see what kind of tricks he has or deals he has up his sleeve, kind of what they're prepared for. I know they go over these contingencies a lot. I joked with them yesterday, or not yesterday, but last week. I said, is there a file A for if you get the pick and a file B if you don't get the pick? And he said there's about 25 files. So, we'll see which one of those files gets plucked here in coming weeks.
Yeah, and that's interesting too, because, I've become obsessed. My latest obsession is Ben Simmons, because I think he's a distressed asset. I haven't fully moved on from John Collins, but, when Atlanta makes the Eastern Conference Finals, I start, he's kind of the new Devin Booker, right? Devin Booker all of a sudden,
right,
becomes this unattainable
gettable
guy
at one point, but yeah, now I'd be shocked if Atlanta.
Right. I mean, having this level of success and having a legitimate chance to get to the finals. I don't think Atlanta's out of their depth competing against Milwaukee in that conference finals, and we'll see. But the types of moves they could make are going to be probably not necessarily core guys unless they find a way to go all in. But one interesting thing that Rose has brought up in that interview with you, and a guy that I kind of forget about, it was the number 23 pick last year. Leandro Balmaro had a really good year in Spain, right? And is maybe developing into someone that they could potentially bring over and bring into the mix. Now, refresh my memory. What is he, a shooting guard? What does he have a position really? What's his, from the limited film we get from Spain, what's the skill set, and what would they be looking for if they do, indeed have this mutual desire to bring him over?
I haven't drilled that far down the Balmaro rabbit hole. And
okay.
Maybe as he gets closer to maybe signing, we'll do a little more of a breakdown on him and analysis right here on Daily Delivery.
Yes, we could. It was 10 years ago that someone else who excelled in that Spanish league arrived here to great fanfare.
That's right. We could be seeing part 2 of that here. So, we'll see. I know a lot of Wolves fans on Twitter and things like that are excited about him. He had a great year over in the Spanish League. Was named most spectacular player.
That's a great award name, by the way.
What a great! I thought that too.
I hope I win an award like that
name.
Sometime. They should, they should give me an award like that.
Most spectacular Star Tribune podcaster.
Wow, there you go. That's a low bar, but that's fine. I'm good. I'm good at that.
So we'll see how that plays out. Roses has said that they're gonna be talking to his agent. I don't know how not landing a pick here affects any of that. Maybe that does free up the money, for instance, that
roster spot, maybe too.
Spot to sign him. So I'm not sure how that all factors into the mix here, but I imagine now that the Wolves are basically, they're set in terms of where they're headed into August 1st here. Now I think they can drill down and make more concrete plans about where this roster is over the next month, 5 weeks or so here.
Yeah, I mean, at the very least, they know where they stand now. They head into free agency right early August. They know they have their pick next season, so they've got that to think about as they think about their assets going forward. That's one of their favorite words. But yeah, I mean, I really felt like this had the potential to be, if they could have somehow gotten lucky in the lottery Tuesday, boy, that would have really put them into a spot where they held a lot of cards. They could have really, with the players they have and with the contracts they have, if they wanted to trade that pick, they really could have gotten into a pretty nice spot where they could have, landed another one of those real core players if they wanted to. And now that opportunity just doesn't really exist, I don't think, with what they can move in a trade.
It's tough to see that. Like you said, if you come in with like the number 2 or 3 pick to the trade market, you're gonna intrigue a lot of people,
especially in this draft with a lot of
in this draft in that tier of the draft. But yeah, I think back to the Andrew Wiggins trade talks when fitting that we're revisiting that a little bit here now, but. I remember talking to you about like what would it take for the Wolves to unload Andrew Wiggins's contract, and would it take 2 first rounders? Would it take, we often wondered that question of just how can they get off of this contract? And I don't want to say it was a little easier than we thought for the Wolves, and we're sitting here a year and a half later, and it is still a pretty steep price to pay, giving up what amounted to a number 7 pick in the draft. But I think the point I'm trying to make here is, I think Rosas, I think trades might be a little easier to make than we think.
Okay.
When it comes to analyzing their situations, so never rule anything out, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
With the Wolves, you should never, ever rule a single thing out, Chris Hine. That is for sure. Well, while I've got you here, I want to talk a little bit about a really good piece you wrote Tuesday about Carl Nassib and just, becoming the first active pro athlete in the NFL, as a matter of fact, to come out as gay. You are a gay man yourself. You are a gay sports writer. You've talked plenty about that on Twitter. It's part of your personality, is part of who you are. And so you wrote that, and I thought it was really a good piece, but I'd like you to kind of, give the listener here a little bit more perspective on, what went into that and what this means, to you personally, or, even just the broader community.
Anytime you have somebody like Carl in a position like that in the NFL, especially when you're breaking boundaries like he is, and you are existing as yourself and as a gay man or a queer man, or in spaces like this that traditionally are unwelcome to our community, it is very significant. And people will say, and the point of what I wrote was, a lot of people say, why is this news? Who cares? It means a lot, especially if you're a adolescent or teenager who's struggling with your gender identity or sexuality. It means a lot to see somebody like that excelling and hopefully thriving, being their full authentic selves in these spaces. That is the significance of this. If I had somebody like him to look up to in sports when I was 14, 15 years old, I think it would have made a world of difference. I really do, because when I was 14, 15, growing up in a very Catholic environment, with my family being religious and going to Catholic school my whole life, as I was struggling with my sexuality, you often felt like there was very little future for you to fully be yourself. You didn't really see any avenues where you could be yourself. I often thought I would have to live a double life. Or I would just have to kind of suppress my sexual identity. So to see this is huge. It's just huge. And I hope that he's able to change some minds, change some hearts, people in his locker room, maybe in his family life. And they see that there's nothing to fear and that we are just normal people. I mean, I don't like the word normal, but we're just people.
Right.
And that's what it is at the end of the day. And that's why this is so significant to me.
That's very well said. I liked the video. He it was very plain spoken. It wasn't like he just like started out and just like got the news right out there, and it was just like here it is.
I loved it. I loved it, and I made a joke about this on Twitter that this is how I'm going to enter every room I ever enter the rest of my life. Hey guys, just want to take a quick moment to say I'm gay. I loved how
it was great. It was just
I loved how casual that was. Hey guys,
was.
I want to take a moment to say I'm gay. It was, but then what he said after it too was so great to hear. Which was the reason that he was doing it was what I just said, was just basically like, I believe a lot in representation and, and kind of being a role model to pay it forward and to help people that come after him. And that's what it's all about. And it was great to see him donating $100,000 to the Trevor Project, which helps LGBTQ plus youth. Especially as it relates to their mental issues and thoughts of suicide. It's a wonderful cause. So it's been just a great 24 plus hours. Because I honestly never thought this would happen in the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
After what happened to Michael Sam,
yep.
When he came out and then all of a sudden he started sliding down draft boards, you started seeing some anonymous executives coming out and saying this and that about his draftability, and it's a distraction and this and that. I honestly never thought, especially somebody like Carl, who's he's not a star. He's a roster guy in the NFL.
Good, solid player. Yeah.
He's a solid player, but he's not like, his talent isn't like unimpeachable. You know what I mean? Like he's not like a Pro Bowl caliber player.
Right.
I thought a lot of those guys would just look at what happened to Michael Sam and say, you know what? It's just not worth the risk. It's not worth the millions of dollars I might lose to my career. I will just stay in the closet and I will just gut through it for my career. And then maybe afterwards I would come out. I never thought, at least in the near future, that we would see this happen again. And I'm glad we are.
NFL matched the donation too. I saw that on Tuesday, and it feels like the NFL, and again, I don't know, you can only take them at their actions, but it feels like that league and other leagues have come a certain distance, not just with, issues of, sexual identity, things like that, but in terms of just social issues, things like that in the last year, 2, 3 years, that the landscape is different maybe than it was before. So maybe this, hopefully in the next, in coming years, this isn't, the quote unquote news that it is right now. And maybe it's less news right now that it is just noteworthy. And like you've articulated a moment where it means a lot to a lot of people as opposed to just being a news event.
I hope so. I hope that this is right. I'm still skeptical after what happened to Michael Sam. I'm still skeptical because it's been 7 years since that happened. And the top 4 men's pro sports, this is the first. Yeah. This is the first that we've seen somebody come out. So it took about 7 years for somebody to reemerge from that. So while I'm very happy that this happened and all signs and the response from the NFL was great, at least, everything's looked good in the first 24 hours here. Yep. As the excitement over the announcement fades, we get into football. I hope he continues to play on the Raiders. I hope he continues to play well. And I hope that, because that's the only way this is ever gonna diminish in its news valueness or newsworthiness over time, is if somebody like him is just allowed to be himself and play in the NFL, and it's not a big deal. So I do hope we've turned a corner there a little bit, but check back with me in about 2.5 months when he suits up week 1. Fingers crossed that nothing happens between now and then.
Absolutely. And that's probably about how long it'll be till I talk to you about the Wolves too, because they've got a long break, which probably means you get a little time off as well. Chris Hine, great to catch up with you on both of those subjects. Thanks for articulating everything so well. Enjoy some well-earned time off, and we'll catch you again in a month or maybe month and a half or so.
Sounds good, Mike. Thank you.
And I should mention the Detroit Pistons got the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Lottery drawing on Tuesday, so it'll be interesting to see how the rest of that top 3, top 5 shakes out. Again, no Wolves as part of that. Certainly no Clippers or Suns in the top 14. They played on Tuesday in a very dramatic game, continuing our theme of drama. I don't know if you guys watched it. Paul George missed 2 free throws after playing very clutch ball at the end. Had the Clippers up 1. Paul George at the line with about 8 seconds left, misses a pair of free throws. Phoenix comes down, gets the ball knocked out of bounds. They got less than a second left. DeAndre Ayton catches an alley-oop from Jay Crowder to win the game. Beautiful, brilliant play call, because on an inbound play, there is no such thing as goaltending. It's you can grab it wherever you want to, because it's just a live ball and not a shot. Ayton puts it in. 104-103, the Suns win. They're up 2-0 in that series, and now sounds like Chris Paul could be back for Game 3. Suns looking like every bit of a contender, with a lot of the big names already out. The Lakers out, the Nets out, Philadelphia out. Could be the Suns' year. We'll have to see about that. Let's end with the cooler drama in Wisconsin. Wisconsin State Journal story. I wrote about this on the Ramball blog on Tuesday, but players in a meeting with seniors, in a meeting with Greg Gard, their head coach of the men's basketball team, 7 seniors called him out, basically saying they don't think they're going to have a great relationship with him when the year is over. This was in February, so this was kind of towards the end of the 2021 season that did not go how Wisconsin wanted. They made the tournament, lost in the second round, kind of went down from their lofty expectations at the start of the year, but an audio recording of that conversation, of that long meeting, made its way to the Wisconsin State Journal. The report on Tuesday, quoting a lot of the players from that meeting, following up with a lot of them as well. I don't know where Wisconsin goes from here, honestly. That's a pretty negative thing to have out there, with a lot of players calling out the coach, saying he doesn't have their back, saying a lot of things about him that aren't flattering and don't look good for that program. So if I'm the Gophers, I'm going to use that in recruiting, right? You got to use that in recruiting if you're the Gophers, if you're Ben Johnson, if you're saying, hey, you're gonna go play for that guy, go there, and by the time you're a senior, you're gonna hate your coach, or you're gonna be complaining about a lot of things, and I don't know how I feel about a locker room meeting audio transcript or audio recording getting leaked like that. I don't think it's any fault of the newspaper. That falls in your hands. You do what you do with it. It's news in that regard, but somebody making a secret recording of that there must have been something else going on there to make them feel like they needed to record that conversation. So that's a mess for Wisconsin. If you enjoy those sorts of things, if you enjoy a little bit of the schadenfreude, you can enjoy this story very, very much. That'll do it for today. Expected to be joined Thursday by 3 fans, viewers of Bally Sports North. Asked them a bunch of questions on a recent interview. I'll have that for you on Thursday, as well as plenty of other things to talk about this week. Thanks for joining me so much on Wednesday's Daily Delivery, and we will catch you again on Thursday.